Dan Littauer.
Hi. Hello, my name is Dan. Rather than tell you all about my background, I can give you a little bit if we have time. I'll just straight to the point talk about what I do and what the work I do. I'm a journalist, but I'm also an advocate specializing with LGBT asylum seekers. What I do is intervene in cases, especially in the UK, with LGBT asylum seekers from the Middle East, not only from Arab world, but from North Africa, from Iran, Pakistan, who have issues they have to run away from their countries because of their sexuality. And I also help people on the ground. So who to contact, who can be trusted, not to be trusted, because that's another thing that is very, very problematic, because if you're running, sometimes if you contact the wrong people, it can really be trouble. Okay? So this is generally. Also write a lot, and for years of working with LGBT people living throughout the Muslim world, I know quite a few, and I know who's reliable and who's not reliable, so I can, if I think, and I consult other organizations as well, the information is useful to be put in the media. For example, if organizations like Amnesty or Human Rights Watch can't do something on the ground, and we need to put pressure in the press, so there'll be a public outrage and then pressure on some of the countries, I do it that way. Yeah? An recent example is in Kuwait. I don't know, you know that in Kuwait there is a lot of problems, especially for LGBT, in particular for transgender people right now. Last year, in 2007, there was a law passed in Kuwait by the Islamist bloc that says you can't imitate the opposite sex. Now, that sounds really silly, but in fact, anybody who's transgender is arrested immediately if they think you are dressed, if it's a transgender woman, i.e. male to female, if she is walking in with, as a woman in Kuwait, or if she's driving, if she's stopped, and that happens a lot because they check your ID in Kuwait, you immediately go to jail. Immediately. Yeah? And there is even talk right now of making a treatment center. Kind of a concentration center to put all the transgender people of Kuwait. It's not been approved by the parliament because the parliament got dissolved recently before it could approve it, but it can happen. So this is, you know, some of the things that we do. And there's a recent case, is I put this in the media because the transgender activists in Kuwait said we must build international awareness of this because it's getting to a point we can't even get out of the house. We can't go to work because if we go to work and they catch us, we're arrested. Yeah, well, we can't stay at home because then we can't go to work. It's like they can't live. So this is just one example. In some cases, it's not a good idea to publish it because it actually can cause a backlash. Now about how can we help LGBT asylum seekers in the Arab world. Maybe before we can speak about that, we can just do a little overview about the situation right now. The situation right now in some of the countries in the Arab world where there have been some either revolutions or changes in the government, like in Kuwait, like in Tunisia, and now in Egypt, the situation is getting a little bit worse, in fact, for LGBT people. In Tunisia, in both Ennahda and the left have been using homosexuality against each other. The Minister of Interior was outed in a movie. I don't know if you know about this. Not too long ago, it was a year ago, I think. One of them, I think it was the Minister of Interior, if I'm not mistaken. He was outed with tape that was recorded when he was in jail during the Ben Ali era, having sex with a guy, and they published it everywhere, you know. and they said, look at Nahda, they are protecting homosexuals, i.e. the Islamists. So the Islamists reacted with, other cases. So it's like a football. It became a political football. And that's very dangerous when it becomes, because then the subject of homosexuality comes from nothing being talked about to be top of the news. It has good sides and bad sides, like everything. Good sides because then, the issue is out. But bad side because actually public opinion is more hostile because nobody is speaking except one person in public. There's only one person in Tunisia that is daring to speak for LGBT rights, which is very brave, but it's only one. All the rest are massively homophobic. And because of the discussions, a lot of the places like cafes, cruising places, offline communities were outed. Even the Minister of Human Rights in Tunisia talked about Gay Day magazine and said we should close it down. It's a kind of a gay LGBT magazine, online magazine. And then Amnesty intervened and said, you're talking about human rights. The Minister of Human Rights is talking about human rights in Tunisia. What about LGBT rights? Says LGBT rights is not human rights. It's a disease. Yeah, and we have to cure it. So there is kind of a stronger discourse now emerging, and it's unfortunately being copied. We recently saw, I don't know if this is not yet published in any other language than Arabic, but right now the leader of Al-Wasat in Egypt was outed as well. Now, he's not probably gay, and there was a publication that said that he was admitted during Mubarak years for psychiatric treatment for his homosexuality, that he liked boys, and they published in the Egyptian media a document from the hospital. The hospital denied it, but it's out there and it's becoming a political football. Right? Once it's becoming political football, people are outed. More people are outed, more places are outed, and it puts in danger already a frightened community in the Arab world. The situation is not as extreme as in Iraq. There are different priorities in the Arab or Muslim world. Iraq and Iran are the worst, because in Iraq, more or less, we have 700 to 800 people already killed until now who are gay and lesbian, transgender people. Yeah, since the invasion of the United States to Iraq. And people are outed, especially by the militias.
I like what you're saying.
So there are priorities of who we have to deal with. And then the question is, how? So Iran and Iraq are number one. Syria is number 3, or 2. Because I just help right now 5 Syrian LGBT gay men, not women. I didn't have any cases of women. Sorry.
But that's after the revolution.
After the revolution. No, before the revolution, it was really much better. We don't even know what's going to happen in Syria. But now the situation is much worse. I'm not saying that I support Assad at all, but there was a kind of, in 2010 it started to deteriorate in Syria. In 2010 what happened was there was a party in Damascus, 36 people got arrested immediately, like that. What? Sorry? Yeah, okay. So now people are outed, and in the situation is that there is no protection, or this kind of protection that there was during this Assad regime. It's breaking down, and gays and lesbians are suffering more, especially because of the resurgence of some of radical Islamist views, which are brought by the rebels or by volunteers from Saudi and Qatar, mostly, unfortunately. And that's putting people at risk, and there's an influx of LGBT refugees out of Syria, especially to Lebanon. What should be done, and this is where we'll talk, is what kind of structures can we do? What can we do? So I think support on the ground, like safe houses for the most urgent cases, and support off the ground, online, which is easy to get to and people can get to and preserve their anonymity within, we have to teach them how, is give them counseling, help, but within an institutionalized setting with people who are credible, who can help. So not only empower them to just leave, because I don't think the solution is to run away. The solution is to empower people on the ground. And those who have to run away, we can help. But we have to prioritize who and how. That's it.
He was very smart, and he put his feet underneath his chair,
yes.
so I couldn't stand on them. So it's very, very good. But thank you very much to Brother Dan for giving an excellent overview of the situation, particularly in the Middle East, and the impact of the change that is taking place within that region, and the impact that has on LGBT asylum seekers in particular, and the experience of LGBT people in those countries. I think he also offered a useful summary of some of the things that we could start thinking about in relation to what we, as those of us who are in the countries here in Europe or elsewhere around the world, can provide, and what support and solidarity we can provide to LGBT asylum seekers seeking to escape from some fairly difficult experiences in their home countries. We're going to move on now to hear from some authentic voices of colleagues, sisters and brothers who've actually come through the asylum process or engaged in the asylum process themselves because of their sexual orientation, their identities. The first colleague, a sister that I'm going to invite is a sister who's from Saudi Arabia. She came to France a year ago, in October last year, and she's going to speak. I'm not going to